That's an awesome one.
That is a great why.
Yeah, and makes I get it.
Well, we're going to talk today about what is a why, a big why, and how does that help drive your business? How does that provide some emotional fuel that gets you fired up to do the hard things? This next slide will talk about the purpose of a big why from the MREA book. Do you have this book handy?
Let me look real quick. I think I do. Yeah.
Okay.
This one?
That's the one.
All
Why don't
right.
you turn to page 72 with me? You know, this is not just unique to real estate. This is in a lot of industries. In fact, there's one about I was doing some research and I looked at the Athletes Assessment website, and they were citing studies that said about 80% of outcome is determined by knowing why you want to achieve that outcome in the first place. So the more deeply attached you are to your reason why, and the more it means something, it really matters to you, the more likely it is that it's going to bring out your best effort and you're going to achieve your goals. So your big why is actually really significant to achievement. And Gary Keller talks on page 72, he's talking about how millionaire real estate agents think. So there are 9 ways, starting on page 71, he talks about the 9 ways that they think. And this really is true generally of all high achievers. Think powered by a big why. So he says that about 4 times in here. And I'll just read part of this and we can talk about it. It says the big why is about having a purpose, a mission, or a need that in turn gives you focus. High achievers always have a big why powering their actions. On the next page, on the top of 73, it says, a big why brings focus and big energy, and a little why brings little focus and little energy. High achievers always have a big why. So on page 75, I wanted to share a little bit from there too, and then have a little time to talk about it, and then maybe to take a minute, and if you've got paper and pen, just write down, jot down a couple thoughts. This is meant to be a little bit workshop-y here. He says, we hope that what motivates you isn't just money or comfortable retirement, in the middle of 75, page 75. The truth is you can achieve those things faster than you think. And then if you're not careful, you'll be left with a lot of life and a little reason to live it. So we're hoping you get in touch with what truly motivates you. So again, on page 76 and 77, there were a couple excerpts I wanted to read from. He says at the top of 76, his favorite big why is that drives people to be the best that they can be. He said, you might think of it this way, being your best is actually a goalless pursuit. You can never really reach a point where you truthfully say, I just can't grow anymore. So he says in the next paragraph, stop for a second and take a look at your notes. So we'll stop and make some notes. What are the whys in your life? What is the biggest one? And if it's the right kind of why, it will also tend to lend foundational support to all of your other whys. Like geese that fly in formation, the lead goose bears the brunt of the work and allows all the other geese to drift behind. Your big why can and will do the same thing for all your other whys. It is the why that pulls your whys. So that's like what Heather was saying. Her big why, her love for her boys and to provide for them and give them a great life is that big why. So this is what that looks like. And when we're done here, I'll send you the PowerPoint and I'll also attach this worksheet so that you can kind of start formulating those. And you know, you can start here with a why that might be, I want to have a business that is my own and gives me autonomy. Well, why? Because then I have the freedom to run it according to my own values and time and drive. And why? So you're going to keep answering that why, one up, one up, one up, until you get to the one that really matters to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it really does. Do you have pen and paper,
Yep.
Andy? Okay, we're gonna just take like a 4-minute break. And I want you to just write down the first why that comes to your mind. And then ask that thing, why does that matter? And then whatever your answer is there, ask it again. And why does that matter? So let's just take, you know, I'm going to set a timer just for 4 minutes and give you permission to have a little time here, you know, to do this. We don't take time to do this. I'm hoping after we finish this that you'll get some time. I've set a 4-minute timer. Go ahead and just take out your paper and write down the first why that comes to mind. And then right after that, why that's important. And just take a minute to process some of it.
Okay.
I'm going to do the same.
All right, sounds good.
All right, time's up. So how did that go?
It went really well. I mean, for what I have written down, I kind of goes back to what I said initially. I think my why is, I want the freedom to determine my own situation a little more. And, I want to, my determination on how hard I want to do something or another thing, I want it to like directly impact, my personal gains in my personal life, and to follow up on that, what I wrote down was, I want to control my own destiny. I want my decisions to directly impact both my professional success as well as the free time I have for my friends and my family and myself. I can kind of take a little more charge of my life when I'm able to do a job like this, and there's times where I want to work all day and there's times where I need to go work out in the middle of the day or go do something or go visit a friend or something, and it just allows me to do that sort of thing, and which is really important to me, and I'm finally able to do that now. So
That is great. So you've managed to completely untangle yourself from welding and go full-time into real estate. I'm really proud of you, Alex. That's a huge leap.
thank you.
That's a
It
huge
took
leap.
took like a year and a half for me to finally get everything, the pieces to come together, but it finally did. So I feel good about it, and I don't want to go back. So that's kind of another driving force is I'm
Yeah.
seeing what I have here, and I don't want to ever go back. I actually delivered earlier this morning. One of my good friends that I worked with, I went up to the shop that I worked at on their break time, and I made some soup and I brought it to him, and we talked for a while, and I was like, he's like, oh, I got about 30 seconds to go. I got to get going. And I'm like, I understand, but I will never go back to that. Like.
Yes. Yes, that's great, Alex. And can you see how having that motivation to get out of there and to have a different life helped you stay for a year and a half? You had to keep leaning in, and it wasn't easy because you already had a full-time job and you were getting up really early. So you were working another job on top of it, but you were so motivated by that why that helped drive you to do something more. And that's a perfect illustration of how a big why helps you get some air under your wings and really make some progress in your life.
Absolutely, I do. Yeah.
Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start With Why. And he says that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. And so it's really important what you do because it inspires and attracts people. I mean, the why of why you're doing what you do, and it leads to how. So the why of why you're doing it, the passion you bring to something, then provides the answer to how are you going to implement what you want to get done here, which then leads you to what strategy and systems and people do you need to implement to do the how, to achieve the why. And so that's another key piece of starting with why, having that big why underlie what you're doing. So a lot of people struggle with finding your big why. And I've heard a lot of people talk about this. And honestly, in this last year, I have done a lot of soul searching myself. Like, what's my purpose? Why am I doing this? What is the big driver for me? And I think people feel like it needs to be this lightning bolt clarity moment that they have. But I suggest that it's more of a process, and that you can start by, I came up with this acronym, getting real. All right. So it would start by reflecting on jobs, experiences, causes, things that either you really loved and drew out passion in you, or things like your last job that said, I am never going back to this again, right? That is also part of our experience that helps inform why we're doing things. The next is to evaluate your emotional response to your experiences. The most powerful and effective big whys are going to be ones that you actually have a really strong feeling about. One of the articles I was reading talked about head to toe, you should have a really strong emotional response to your big why that is really powerful, that gives you the emotional fuel to keep going when things get tough. So as you're looking back at some experiences in your life, evaluate or pay attention to those experiences that have a strong emotional response for you, either positive or negative. And then the A is to ask yourself key questions, and then ask yourself why. And on the next page, I'm going to have a whole series of questions. Most of the articles I read about how to discover your big why were a whole series of self-discovery questions. So it's really great if you can take time and usually get out of your regular setting, maybe go to a coffee shop or go for a walk, and then ask yourself some of these questions and give yourself the gift of some thinking time to process or respond to some of these. And then the L is look for stories that have inspired you in the past. I was listening to a podcast on branding, discovering your brand, communicating your brand. And a lot of it started with what Simon Sinek referred to as starting from why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And then that meaning, that passion is what defines your brand. I wish I could remember the quote. It was something like your brand equals your meaning plus trust fueled by your experience. And everything you do is communicating what is really meaningful to you. And when this person was working to help his client discover a meaningful brand that people could really connect with, he asked him, why do you make movies? And the guy said, it seemed like a good way to make money. It was a great opportunity, and I'm kind of creative. He said, well, making money is not really super powerful. Nobody's going to want to work with you because you want to make money, right? Nobody's going to want to sell their house with you because you want to make some money. It is not a powerful, force that resonates with people. He said, isn't there some, pardon?
It's kind of a deterrent for a lot of people, honestly.
I think so, right? And so he asked the guy, well, why did you even get into filmmaking? And he said, well, when I was young, I was really sick and I was in the hospital and my parents were the only ones allowed to see me. And so my brother made these little films. He made these little videos that he would send with them for me. And he said they were everything to me. They cheered me up. They encouraged me so much. I was so depressed. And they just kept me going. And that's when I realized film has the power to inspire and encourage and help uplift people. And I wanted to be part of that. And the guy who was working with him said, that is a very powerful why. do the people who work for you know that? He said, no, I don't think I've ever told that story before. Should I? Yeah, right? That's a classic example of those stories that help us understand why this matters to us, why we have a passion about it. There actually was an agent that started with us, and I asked them why they got into this business. And they said, you know what? I had such a horrible experience with the agent who helped me buy my house. It was so bad. And I thought, this is terrible. I don't want anybody to ever experience this again. And if someone who is that bad can make a living doing this, there's got to be room for me. And I would really like to help change this experience for people. So in her case, it was a negative experience that helped fuel her. She recognized a need and she became passionate about satisfying a need for something different for people. Again, a really powerful why that as she communicates that and communicates her passion to provide a really positive, helpful, experience, valuable experience for people in buying and selling their homes, that's a powerful motivator. Any questions on my little get real thing here? Okay, all right. So here are some of the sample questions I found out there. And I thought, this isn't something you're probably going to sit down and go through all at one time and make a big deal about this. But I think that they would be excellent questions if you were trying to come up with what is your driving mission or big why for your business that you could share with people, or as your business grows, Alex, and you want to start bringing other people alongside, they're going to want to work with you because you've got a why that resonates with them. A bigger, maybe altruistic goal that would help people. So some of these questions to discover what is that thing that really fires you up is what makes you come alive. What are your innate strengths? Where do you add the greatest value? I thought this was a great question. How will you measure your life? So if you sit down the end, are you going to measure it in number of transactions? Or are you going to measure it in strength of relationships? Or are you going to measure it in terms of, I was able to give to whatever organization it is that provided fresh water in 87 communities in Africa? What is it that you value that is going to be a positive measure of your life and will serve as fuel to drive you forward? All right.
I kind of like the what pisses you off so much.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that good? I know. But I thought that is really valid. Some of these I thought, that's unusual. I've never heard anything like that before. But when you think about it, it's like the person who got into real estate, right? Because she had such a terrible experience.
Yeah.
Or there have been people, who've suffered some sort of childhood trauma. How about the woman who came up with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, right? She lost her daughter, and so she became really passionate around that cause and has made a huge difference. Who knows how many thousands of lives she's changed. So that question, Heather, is, I think, probably what fueled her big why and why she's made such a huge difference in the world.
Totally.
Hi, Jelena. I'm sorry, we're partway through here.
No, it's all right. I'm obviously
recap
late.
if you need.
I can definitely relate to the what pisses you off so much, as far as, like I said, with my career, my previous career, I just felt like I was working so hard every day, putting everything I had into it, and I just was rewarded my 1% or 2%, it just felt fruitless. Like I was like, what's the point anymore? And that's kind of like, like I said, going on the break time this morning and bringing my buddy that soup I made, it was like seeing him worry about being a minute late and getting yelled at for being a minute late. I'm like, That alone made me angry and brought me right back to what I dealt with for 13 years. And I just,
Nope.
it kind of all comes around and relates to each other in a lot of ways. It's just,
Yep, exactly. And that is, that is part of the valid question. The things that fire us up, whether it's with a passion towards something or away from something, they're both really valid. I was hearing something just the other day that the majority of people are more motivated to move away from pain than to move towards something positive. And I think, right, Alex, that is part of the case of what was motivating to you, was to move away from something that was unfulfilling, that was unpleasant, that you hated so much. You moved away from that pain, and that was a motivation for you. Other things like what has scared the hell out of you. I thought that was an interesting question too. I've heard people talk about coming really close to bankruptcy and saying that was a really terrifying experience. The thought of losing everything, having to start over. I have radically changed my behaviors, and why and how I do things have been forever altered. So some of these questions may not lead you to your big why, but they will be contributors to that, like that other drawing that we looked at, the other geese that file up to that big head one. I will share these questions with you so that you can go through them later and spend some time journaling and get some insight about what matters to you. One of the things that, as I've been kind of studying and learning about the big why and how it functions and how it motivates us, I've learned that, first of all, very few people have a really clear big why. For most people, it's a process, it's a journey of them taking their life and sorting out, oh, don't want that, or yes, this was phenomenal, I want more of that. So that's kind of how that process of sorting goes in getting connected to what motivates you and what you value. The other thing is that it can change, right? So Alex, you have got freedom now, and you are experiencing some new patterns and habits as part of your new career. But at some point you may decide, just plain not wanting to go back to that is not enough to motivate you to something new and bigger and higher. And so you might have to figure out, what is it at a higher, bigger level that inspires me, that pulls me towards it, that I want to get a hold of, that's going to help me grow, that's going to push me to do hard things because I want that so badly. That was one of the things on the sites about athletes, that the athletes who had a big why were more likely to do the hard things, to push harder, to work harder, to lift one more time when they didn't think their muscles had it in them, to do even one more rep. But they were going to do it because they were so passionate about getting that thing that they wanted so badly. That why was so powerful. And that's the kind of drive we want, that pulls us to being our best selves, not just out of the worst case scenario, but into our best possible self. So have you ever heard of the term Ikigai? Let me see if I got this right. Ikigai, that's how you say it. I had to look it up on YouTube, how you even say that word, okay? It's a Japanese word. And as we look at this, I'm going to show you here on this. So it has these intersecting circles. The first one is what you love. The next is what the world needs, and that incorporates your mission and vocation. The next circle is what people are willing to pay for. That would be your profession and your vocation. And then here is what you're great at. So that would encompass your passion and profession. And this little sweet red spot in the middle, that's your ikigai. And they say if you find that spot, that you will never work a day in your life because your life will be so fulfilled by what you do. And at least the tradition, I don't know if it's borne out factually, but there was a couple articles that indicated scientifically that it will enable you to live more than 100 years if you find this place. So this is ideal, but nobody wakes up with this aha moment that says, this is my thing. And then they just drive towards it and live to be 100. You know, it'd be great if we all had, I don't know if you're familiar with the Road to Damascus experience where Apostle Paul's going along and he sees a light and it knocks him off his thing and aha, now I know what I'm supposed to do, right? That would be great if each of us had that kind of an experience where we suddenly know what we're supposed to be doing and everything falls into place and our ikigai is formed perfectly for us. But in actuality, this is informed by our real world interactions. And so you just need to get out there and do life. Even though Simon Sinek says start with why, if you wait for your why to be perfectly formed, you may never start at all. That is the danger with starting with why, is that if you think, oh, if I don't have a why, I can't start, and it becomes a stumbling block, that it actually stymies your opportunity to excel and to grow and to achieve. So you find your big why just by doing, by living your life, by discovery in the process. So here are some resources that I use that the problem with finding your big why really dealt with people getting stuck in trying to determine their purpose or their why before going on to make major decisions. And sometimes our major failures are part of our discovery process. So just go. The next was, do you know your why? And 4 questions. I believe that article was by Forbes and it had some great questions in it. The next link I'll share with you is Simon Sinek's TED Talk that is about start with why. And that has more to do with as you run your business. If you have a why you're doing your business, that'll lead you to how are you going to implement that. And then the what, the systems and people and processes that you'll need to implement that how. That's what Simon talks about there. He calls that the golden circle. And then just this morning, I was listening to how your core values drive your purpose. So the core, your core values are something that you kind of have to discern, and you kind of have to sort through them. In Dare to Lead by Brené Brown, she has a whole list of core values. And really what you need to do is try and go through those and figure out what are the 3 that really resonate with you, that are really true to who you are. And then use those core principles, you know, to help guide your decision making and inform what is your purpose or your big why going to be. Because those two things, your purpose, your core values, and your big why are all going to be in perfect alignment. I had originally thought that if we had more people in here, we'd have more discussion and more conversation time around this. But I just kind of, since it was to start out as Alex and I, we just kind of went right through these slides. Alex, do you have any questions on this? Does this give you any more clarity than you started with about why having a big why, first of all, what it is and why it matters going forward?
I don't have any questions. I think it kind of gives me a little affirmation on everything I'm trying to do right now, and just kind of confirming that I'm not the only one that is choosing this path for the reasons I'm choosing, you know. And it just, you know, there's a reason why people want to do this, and it's not the money usually. Like, the money is whatever, but like the benefits of just self-health and
Mhm.
personal relationships and other things, among several other things, you know. It just, I don't have any questions, but I just kind of getting confirmation with a lot of things, with that I'm not the only one that goes through this. They're writing books about it, you know. So
Exactly. Do you feel like you have a big why for your business? So that's your big why for you personally. Do you have a why for why your business exists? For some people, it's they see a problem that needs to be solved. For some people, they just have a really positive something they want to get out in the world. Have you formed that yet? You're pretty new in your business.
yeah, I'm working on that a little bit. I know that,
Sure.
like I said, this last weekend, I helped someone they accepted an offer on a place, and they were really down and out about thinking of their odds on why would they pick our, you know, we're one of 30 people that made offers on this house. And then when they actually took our offer, it gave me a taste of satisfaction, being like, oh my gosh, like, this was their dream house.
Yeah.
And I actually was a huge reason on how they were actually able to get it. Because going into the deal, like, they were so, you know,
Mhm.
they had no confidence in their ability to actually come through with a house they wanted. And we came across a house that they fell in love with, and it all worked out. And it kind of gave me a taste of man, like, I can help people accomplish something they didn't think was possible in a lot of ways. And it just was really rewarding. So I think that's going to play a huge role for me. And you know, just going forward, like, I like the idea of helping people that are starting families and want to move on from, you know, like the couple that I helped, they had a house they liked, and then a guy got into a high-speed car chase and slammed his car through their living room and pulverized their house, and they've been living with their parents for like a year. And so they were
Oh
like,
my
how
word.
I know, it happened down in Egan like about 8 or 9 months ago. And it was just for them to come from that scenario and then end up where they're at now, and then me being involved anywhere in between, you know, just made it be like, man, this is a lot more rewarding. I wanted the freedom to begin with, but I wasn't expecting to feel so rewarding, get
Mhm.
such a rewarding experience out of something like that. And this weekend, it really was a rewarding experience for me. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to definitely play a role in my, you know, business model, as far as just feeling that, you know,
Yeah.
just that rewarding experience, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't we all want something that's fulfilling, that actually has meaning to it beyond, keeping the roof over our head and food on the table? Something that has meaning past that. I get it. Jelena, how about you, since you're here? Do you have a big why? Have you discovered yours? Are you in the process?
I think my personal big why is much like Alex's, where I came from an industry that there should be more to life than working the long hours and I guess wasting it. And professionally, I'm rereading the MREA book, and I just kind of got through Think Like a Millionaire, and how he talks about it's about constant growth, and personal growth is kind of the big why for Gary Keller's, why he does things and his big why. And I think that's important, and to always be moving to the next level and trying to grow personally. And it's not about more money or a bigger business. It's about, making that next step and growing.
And you know what I love about that mindset, both of what you've just said and how Gary presents it in MREA, is that there's no ceiling on that. Like, you really don't know how big can this go. I just heard an agent the other day talking about how when they first started in the business, she was a stay-at-home mom. It was just kind of doing real estate on the side, and she dropped the kids off at daycare. And by the time she got into the office, this other new hotshot had already been in there for an hour and a half and doing his thing and was going great guns. And she just said, wow, okay, well, I can't do that. And I don't really want a business that big. I don't ever want to have to deal with all that. That's not my thing. And at some point she stopped herself and said, wait a minute, what do I really want? What if I did? Doesn't have to look like that. And she completely changed her thinking around that. And to this day, she has 3 big businesses, and she's impacting a lot of lives and a lot of people. And she still has managed to keep her family central. So it didn't look like the other one, but she allowed herself to be as big as she could be and to grow as big as she could grow, and really stopped putting a ceiling on that and what that accomplishment could look like. So I think you're right, that sense of our own, be our best selves, is the ultimate big why. Well, guys, thank you for joining me for this. I will send you my PowerPoint with the links, and I'll also send you the sheet for that, what do we call that? The goose exercise, the flying geese in formation that helps you think through really what's the biggest why and how that funnels down to your.
I didn't realize you went over that.
Yeah. Well,
PowerPoint.
anything we do starts with, we started on page 72 to 77. So you were right in sync with us all the time.
Perfect.
All right. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Wendy.
And let me know if you have any questions.
All right.
Until next time, thanks so much.